Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Reds Room, where we take an in depth look at Cincinnati Reds memorabilia. I'm your host, Sean Sparks, and joining me once again from Huntington, West Virginia, Mark Reed. Mark, welcome back to the Reds Room.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
Fantastic. Well, so what we're going to look at today are just all kinds of different buttons. And some people call them pins. I've always called them buttons.
I call them pins.
You call them pins?
Some people call them pinbacks.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
All
can
the same
imagine
thing.
that. So, and I don't know, buttons go back as far as 1800s maybe even, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
And they come in all size, shapes, forms.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, and obviously in value also.
Yeah.
So let's start right here with this one front and center. And these are like 6-inch buttons.
Yeah.
And this is from 61, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Is that
61
correct?
World Series.
We'll take a closer look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got a value of that at 70.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about these 6-inch buttons that are out there.
Yeah. Pretty desirable. Pretty much all of them. All of the older ones, older meaning like 60s and 70s. You see them also like from the 90s, the 90 World Series in particular. But the older ones than that, the 60s and the 70s are quite popular. When I'm able to pick them up, they usually sell pretty quickly, in about that range. $75 give or take. They just look really cool, and something you don't see every day.
Yeah, now I have a pretty extensive collection of these,
Yeah,
and I think there's probably, maybe 20
That's
or so?
about- yeah, I think
roughly,
that's about
approximately. I don't know exactly how many exist.
and we're probably gonna find like a couple more.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
probably some we don't know about yet.
Well, hopefully somebody sees this and maybe shares
Yeah,
some
absolutely.
pictures of them. It's always
Yeah.
great to see. And now this is one of your higher end, as far as value goes, higher end, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like the stuff that I tend to buy and sell, yeah. Now, obviously, there's pins out there a lot smaller that are pretty hard to find that can go for a lot more money. Than
Yeah,
that.
but among the 6-inch buttons, this is one of the higher end ones, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably
but
upwards.
I think it is. But a lot of them, are kind of in that same range.
Okay.
Even the ones from the '70s. That well, some of the harder ones from the '70s go in around that same range. Now, like some ones that have like the team pictures
Okay.
tend to be a little easier to find. So yeah, they're not worth quite that much.
And there's some from the 90s, even the 90 World Series I've
Right.
seen. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And just something, and because I'm looking at the back, and I noticed, and I'll show a picture of this for sure, that they have pedestals on the back. That these were actually
Yeah.
kind of meant to be set out and displayed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they probably all came like that. Almost every one I've ever seen has like the little cardboard pedestal, like you're saying, where you can kind of pop it out and prop it up, where it can kind of stand up on its own. Yeah.
Yeah, I love these 6-inch buttons. But let's move on now to this says over 3,000 hits. I'm a Pete Rose fan, and the new consecutive game hitting record. And you got a value of $30 on that. And tell us a little bit about. There's a
Yeah.
lot of these Pete Rose style pins, isn't there? Different ones.
Yeah, different ones. Yeah, I mean, obviously Rose is a pretty big name, so a lot of little pins made, to honor his accomplishments. That one's from '78. That's one you don't. Most of the ones I brought are ones you not necessarily super hard to find, but you don't see them every day.
Uncommon.
So fairly uncommon.
Uncommon to rare. And this is a standard size button that I
Yeah.
mainly. Let's call this a 3.5. Is that
Right,
correct?
3.5. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's your
3.5 inch.
standard, more common. I know there's other sizes, but
Yeah.
it seems like that's the size I see the most.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay. Then we have one here. You have a $40 retail value on it. It says "Go Go Reds." Kind of simple, but really,
Right.
really kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably from '61. Around the '61 World Series.
Yeah. Well, if you look at that, it kind of looks a lot like the flavor of this 61 right
exactly.
here. Yeah.
Yep.
Just a lot smaller in
Right.
size. And I see a lot of them that are just kind of plain text, white with red letters, and just has some kind of saying on it about the Reds.
Yeah. So obviously, there's nothing on it that dates it. I mean, in terms of it doesn't have a date on it anywhere. So it's one of those things you kind of learn as you're in it a little bit longer. That was kind of a it kind of matches up with this pin, and so you just kind of learn that that's probably a 61 early 60s pin.
Yeah, that's how you can kind of date them that way. Yeah, it makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, most of these have, I don't know, like what do they call that, a hook and clasp?
Right.
Like a hook on the back where they, but now this one
Yep.
here is, I call these like straight pins or
Okay.
stick pins.
Right.
Now this one looks much older. You have a $60 retail value. I'm trying to read. It says booster.
Yeah. It says booster on
Booster on both of the
Yep.
the little tassels there.
Right.
Now tell us a little bit about that. What year and maybe some other pins like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably 50s. Based on the look of the logo. And I've seen just the pin itself, from time to time. Had several like that over the years. That's the first one I've seen one like that with the ribbons on them. So I thought it was really cool that it had those. Typically pins that have like the ribbon, and some even have like a little chain with a little bat and glove on it or something like that.
I've seen those. Yeah.
Yeah, they typically add a decent amount of value to the pins because they're uncommon. So pin collectors, that's something that's harder to find.
Now I've seen these a lot. I mean, I collect lapel pins, but because I see a lot of these button stuff. But aren't there a lot of also just reproductions out there you got to be careful of?
Yeah, there are, and it can be hard to. Sometimes it can be difficult to figure out what's real, what's not. I would say I don't see a ton of reproductions, but I also think these are kind of, in general, they're kind of hard to, like checklist, because a lot of them don't have a particular year associated with them. I mean, the only way you can really do it is just kind of write a description of them, as opposed to a baseball card or a ticket stub that's come from a specific game. Pins can be a lot harder to know exactly what it is, when it's from. It's interesting when I do shows that on these, I'll hear numerous times over the weekend, I'm not sure if I have that pin or not. I'm not sure if that's in my collection or not. And then they'll pull out their phone and start going through their pictures, because really taking pictures is probably the best way to keep track of what you have on something like this. So.
And with these, if you're ever unsure, I mean, as I've talked in the past, find an expert. There are people who, I know several people, Mark Reed being one of them, that can always help you try to identify, the year or if it's the real thing or not the real thing. I mean, you've seen thousands and thousands of these over the years, so you really know what you're talking about. And here's another one of these peep pins. Now, what size is this? Is this like a 2-inch?
It's about 2-inch, I'd say.
2-inch? Yeah. And this is, you got a retail value of $35 on that, and it says, "Say you didn't cheat, Pete."
So late 80s, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's one that I don't see that very often.
I can't say that I have either.
Yeah.
That's obviously one the Reds wouldn't have produced.
Probably not.
Yeah, that's not a license. That's probably a vendor outside the stadium or something.
Right.
Yeah, but it's still that doesn't make it any less valuable by any means. But
yeah.
Really cool, and I like that one. And what do we have here?
So that's a Reds Rooter pin.
Oh, yeah.
That one in particular, I thought it was really clean. I've seen
$25 retail value.
Yeah, $25 on that one, and it's got the Mr. Redlegs head on there. A lot of times you'll see those where it's got the dotted line on there to write your name on it.
Oh, okay.
So
like a marker or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll frequently see those with somebody's name written on them.
Okay.
So this one's pretty clean.
And I assume, unless it was like a prominent name, probably without the name is worth more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And here we have, I'm familiar with this one.
Yeah.
$40 retail. This is When We're Hot, We're Reds Hot, which I've seen on a lot of different merchandise that the Reds did.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, it's Mr. Red himself holding up a banner above his head. I like that, that particular button. And there's several buttons that are similar in style to that.
Yeah. Sometimes they'll have say something similar but a little bit different in the banner there. Yeah, they made a number of things. Pennants. We've talked about pennants before that have the same look. So yeah, they did a lot of things during that time period. 75, 76, around in there with that same image.
And this last pin here, last but not least, you have a $30 retail value. And I might buy this from you before this show's over. Opening day, 1975. Go Reds. Riverfront Stadium, April 7th, 1975. Beat them bums. I love that.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
Now, is this something they did on a lot of opening days, or?
I've seen them for a number of opening days through the 70s, and especially as you get into the later 70s. I've seen them from that time period. So I don't know that I've seen a lot really even older or newer than that.
Well, I know nowadays the opening day is always associated with the lapel pins.
Right, yeah.
But maybe before that they were doing these 3.5-inch buttons.
Yeah.
And
so I don't know if they were giveaways. I don't know if they sold them at the souvenir stand. I'm not exactly sure how they were distributed.
Do you see a lot of those? Is that?
It's one of those that's kind of, you see them, but they're not super hard to find. They're out there, but you don't see it every day. So.
Oh, that's a very cool pin. I like that one a lot. Or button.
Yeah.
I even said it wrong. You got me saying pin.
To me, they're pins.
They're pins, yeah.
They're button. I mean, really, you see them called lots of different things.
Certainly, we know there's got to be 1,000 different style buttons.
Absolutely.
Just of the Reds.
Just of the Reds.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed, like when I bring these to a show, I'm amazed how many different people collect these. There's a lot of Reds collectors that. Some of them have a particular focus, whether it's like the 75, 76 World Series teams. Some of them collect like virtually any Reds pin, that they don't have. So there's a lot of pin collectors out there.
Well, and if that's all you collected or focus of your collection, they don't take up a whole lot of room.
Right? Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You could layer these on a shelf pretty deep, and
yeah,
it would probably look pretty good, I imagine.
Yeah.
But well, hopefully that covers some knowledge about some pins. Certainly, like I said, there's many more out there. We hope you maybe share some pictures of some rare pins that you may have in your collection. But that's all we got for this episode. Thanks for joining us, and happy collecting, everyone.